A single name is now echoing through the corridors of British politics like a warning bell: Lucy Connelly. What started as a quiet case buried beneath bureaucratic red tape has now erupted into a global scandal, and at the very heart of this political earthquake stands Keir Starmer. The media can no longer spin it, the party can't bury it, and Starmer can't run from it. In just the last hour, shocking new evidence linked directly to Starmer's leadership has surfaced, and now the British public and the international stage are demanding answers. The Lucy Connelly case has blown the lid off a secret Labour didn't want anyone to see. Brace yourself. The truth is far darker than you imagined. The Lucy Connelly case was never supposed to see the light of day. For months, if not years, key details surrounding her allegations were kept under wraps by shadowy political forces, desperate to preserve their image. Lucy Connelly, a name once only whispered in activist circles and private forums, is now printed across international headlines. And what has finally dragged this case into the spotlight? One explosive leak, an internal Labour report, accidentally made public, that directly implicates senior party officials in a cover-up designed to protect their leader. That leader? Keir Starmer. What makes this so damning is not just the content of the report, but the fact that it confirms what many feared. Lucy Connelly wasn't just ignored, she was silenced. When she first came forward with serious claims of abuse and misconduct involving powerful Labour figures, she was met with cold indifference. Worse, internal communications now suggest she was actively pressured to withdraw her claims to protect the party's public image. Starmer's name appears in that web, not as a distant observer, but as someone allegedly briefed on the situation and warned of the political risk. As of now, Starmer has made no public statement addressing the new documents. But sources from inside the Labour Party reveal chaos behind closed doors. Panic is spreading among MPs and staffers. Phones are ringing off the hook. PR teams are scrambling. It's clear this isn't just another media storm. It's a full-blown crisis that threatens to shatter the already fragile foundation of Starmer's leadership. And the global reaction? Swift and brutal. Human rights organisations from the hubs in US, Canada and Europe have all released scathing statements condemning Labour's handling of the Lucy Connelly allegations. The UN Human Rights Council is reportedly reviewing the matter, and the European Parliament has raised it as a point of concern for democratic transparency in the UK. Starmer has long positioned himself as a man of integrity and law. But now, with these revelations, his image is burning in the flames of hypocrisy. The silence from Labour MPs is deafening. Not a single high-profile figure has come forward to defend Starmer publicly. Many are reportedly furious, feeling blindsided and betrayed. Insiders claim that several MPs are already planning to defect or resign, fearing political suicide if they remain loyal to a party engulfed in scandal. Some believe this could even trigger a leadership challenge, or worse, a total collapse, of Labour's general election strategy. And let's not forget the voters. In working-class towns across the UK, fury is boiling over. People who once gave Starmer the benefit of the doubt are now turning against him. Protests are being organised. Petitions demanding his resignation have already reached hundreds of thousands of signatures. The British public has made it clear they won't stand by while power protects itself and victims are pushed into the shadows. The media is finally waking up. Even traditionally Labour-friendly outlets like The Guardian and The Independent have started publishing editorials calling for accountability. Meanwhile, right-leaning platforms are going in for the kill, dissecting every detail of the leaked report and pointing to this as proof of Labour's moral collapse. The BBC has announced a special investigative broadcast tonight, expected to include whistleblower interviews and damning testimony from former party staffers who claim this is just the tip of the iceberg. And that's the terrifying part. If this is only the beginning, what else is buried in Labour's vault of secrets? The Lucy Connelly case may be the key that unlocks a much larger scandal, one that could expose how deep the rot runs inside British politics. Keir Starmer is now cornered. Every second he delays a response is another second of trust lost. His silence is not strength, it's guilt, broadcast in real time. The walls are closing in. What began as a single firestorm over Lucy Connelly's buried case has now grown into a 5-alarm inferno engulfing Keir Starmer's leadership. As pressure mounts from the public and international observers, the real war is now happening behind closed doors, inside the Labour Party itself. And for Starmer, the most terrifying part isn't what the public already knows. It's the fact that his closest allies are beginning to turn on him. Sources from within Labour headquarters report that senior advisers, party strategists, and even long-standing loyal MPs are losing faith. Some are leaking, others are plotting, but nearly all of them are bracing for impact. Starmer's iron grip on power is crumbling, and with every passing hour, more pieces of his empire are falling away. Whispers of discontent have turned into full-blown mutiny. Several high-ranking MPs are reportedly in active talks with backbenchers to trigger an internal leadership challenge. Normally such talk would be dismissed as political theatre, but this time it's different. The Lucy Connelly revelations have pierced the heart of Labour's credibility. For a party that spent years claiming to be the moral alternative to the Conservatives, this scandal cuts far deeper than usual political failings. It suggests betrayal, hypocrisy, and deliberate suppression of a young woman's voice to protect political careers. And in the world of public opinion, there is no coming back from that. Starmer's once staunch allies like Rachel Reeves and David Lammy have gone conspicuously silent. Neither has issued a strong defence of the Labour leader in the wake of the fume. Global uproar. Behind the scenes, sources say tensions are at breaking point. Reeves, who had been grooming her own leadership ambitions quietly, is said to be weighing her options. Lammy, once touted as Starmer's foreign policy anchor, is reportedly furious that the scandal has now reached international diplomatic circles. European leaders are privately expressing concern over Starmer's handling of the issue, especially as Labour's credibility on human rights and justice comes under scrutiny abroad. Perhaps the most shocking development is the apparent involvement of the party's legal affairs unit. Internal emails leaked to the press show legal staff warning leadership months ago that the Connolly case could cause irreparable damage if not handled transparently. That advice was allegedly ignored. Instead, the leadership team opted to classify Lucy Connelly's claims as low priority and treated her outreach as a threat to political stability rather than a cry for justice. Now that these emails are public, the party's legal staff may themselves become whistleblowers, unwilling to go down with a ship they no longer believe in. Even local constituency offices are breaking ranks. Labour's grassroots network, which forms the bedrock of election campaigning, is experiencing mass resignations. In northern regions where Labour has traditionally enjoyed safe support, CLP chairs and organisers are stepping down in protest. Some have released open letters calling Starmer's silence cowardly, damaging and utterly disgraceful. One particularly damning resignation from a Manchester Labour official reads, "If we do not protect the vulnerable, what is the point of our movement? I will not lend my time or my name to a party that turns a blind eye to injustice." The media fallout continues to grow. Every major newspaper in the UK has now placed the Lucy Connelly scandal on its front page. International broadcasters like CNN, Al Jazeera and France 24 have run detailed exposés on how the Labour Party allegedly covered up misconduct to maintain political control. In Australia, human rights groups have already planned demonstrations at British consulates. In Canada, MPs from multiple parties have raised the issue in Parliament, calling on the UK government to investigate potential legal breaches. The scandal is no longer just a national disgrace, it's an international stain on British democracy. And yet, the Labour leadership continues to delay any meaningful response. Starmer's most recent appearance was a tightly controlled photo op in a London school where reporters were barred from asking questions. The footage was immediately criticised online as tone-deaf and cowardly. Meanwhile, Lucy Connelly's voice has only grown louder. She has now secured legal representation and is preparing to make a public statement in the coming days. Her legal team has hinted that they possess even more damning evidence, including audio recordings and correspondence that could prove Labour's top brass knowingly suppressed her claims. If true, that would not only destroy Starmer's career, it could lead to criminal investigations. Within Labour HQ, morale is collapsing. Staff are reportedly exhausted, angry and fearful. Some describe the atmosphere as apocalyptic, with multiple departments at a standstill, unable to move forward without leadership direction. Others are calling this moment worse than the Corbyn years, not because of ideological chaos, but because of moral collapse. What's worse, no one seems to have a plan. Without Starmer stepping up to explain or resign, Labour is drifting toward an electoral disaster that could hand the keys to number 10 over to its rivals. As Keir Starmer struggles to contain the Labour inferno sparked by the Lucy Connelly scandal, the political battlefield around him has transformed into a ruthless game of opportunity. Reform UK, once dismissed as a fringe party, is now surging into the national spotlight with the force of a political earthquake. Nigel Farage and Richard Tice are wasting no time. In fact, they've already launched a series of aggressive campaigns across key Labour strongholds, framing themselves as the only credible voice for justice, transparency and the British public. They're not just calling out Labour's failure, they're exploiting it, turning every moment of silence from Starmer into a thunderous rallying cry for change. The timing couldn't be more explosive. Just as Lucy Connelly's legal team prepares to unleash their next bombshell, potentially implicating even more senior Labour figures, Farage has announced an emergency reform rally in Manchester, the very region where grassroots Labour support has begun to collapse. He delivered a scathing address, accusing Starmer of betraying every woman in Britain and hiding behind lawyers instead of facing the people. The response was overwhelming. Thousands poured into the streets, waving banners that read, "Justice for Lucy, Labour lied and reform the system." What was once a simmering political alternative has now become a roaring firestorm of populist momentum. Meanwhile, the Conservative Party sees an opportunity of its own. Rishi Sunak, who had been floundering in the polls for months, has now found new footing by adopting a firm stance on the Lucy Connelly affair. He has publicly condemned Starmer's silence and called for an immediate independent inquiry. Senior Tory ministers have described the Labour leader as morally compromised and unfit for office. But make no mistake, this isn't about virtue. It's about power. The Tories know that Labour's implosion could pave the way for a dramatic return to dominance. And with Reform UK chipping away from the right, the Conservatives are now racing to reclaim lost ground by posing as the more responsible choice. Behind the scenes, a flurry of cross-party meetings has been taking place. Intelligence sources within Westminster report that high-level discussions are underway to fast-track legislation that would increase oversight into how political parties handle sensitive legal claims. Reform UK is preparing to introduce a bill that would make it illegal for any political organisation to bury abuse allegations without public disclosure. If passed, this bill could retroactively open Labour up to civil and criminal liabilities for suppressing the Connolly case. Reform's legal team has even begun collaborating with whistleblowers from inside Labour to build a massive public case that could cripple the party entirely. But perhaps the most shocking twist is coming from Labour voters themselves. Disillusioned and furious, many are defecting en masse. Surveys released in the last 48 hours show Labour's support plummeting by over 15 points in constituencies that once stood as the party's backbone. Reform UK is now polling neck and neck with Labour in these regions, and in some cases, even leading. Voters are no longer asking if Starmer will survive, they're asking if the Labour Party will survive. Entire communities are beginning to view Labour not as the party of the people, but as a corrupt political machine more interested in protecting elites than in delivering justice. Social media is fanning the flames. Hashtags like #Justice for Lucy and Starmer must resign are trending across every major platform, accumulating millions of impressions. Influencers, activists and journalists from across the political spectrum are uniting in outrage. TikTok videos of Lucy Connelly's story have gone viral. Instagram reels highlighting leaked emails and internal Labour messages are being shared by celebrities and public figures. The scandal has evolved from a national political crisis to a global cultural moment. People from around the world are looking at Britain and asking, how could this happen in a so-called modern democracy? Even international watchdogs are joining the fray. Amnesty International has issued a formal statement demanding a full investigation into the Labour Party's conduct. Human Rights Watch has called for global pressure on British leadership to ensure accountability. And the United Nations has quietly signalled interest in reviewing whether the UK's political parties are complying with global standards for human rights protection. It's no longer just about Starmer. This is now a test of Britain's entire political integrity, and Reform UK and the Conservatives are both preparing to position themselves as the country's moral and legal saviours. As Reform and Tory forces rise, Labour continues to spiral. Staffers are reportedly abandoning their posts, campaign strategies are being torn apart, donors are pulling out. And Starmer? He remains silent. Is it arrogance? Denial? Or is he simply paralysed by the scale of the disaster unfolding around him? Regardless, his inaction is fueling the crisis further, and the British people are watching, with growing disgust. At this point, any move Starmer makes will be too late. Reform UK knows this. The Conservatives know this. And now, even his own MPs are beginning to admit it privately. The political pressure cooker that has surrounded the Lucy Connelly case for weeks finally erupted as Connolly herself broke her silence in a searing, emotional public statement that sent shockwaves across the nation and far beyond. With cameras flashing and global media outlets hanging on every word, Lucy stood before the press and delivered a chilling account of her ordeal, directly implicating senior Labour officials in what she described as a deliberate and systemic cover-up. Her voice may have trembled at times, but her words were sharp, precise, and undeniable. In just a few minutes, she painted a damning portrait of a party that, instead of protecting her, allegedly chose to silence, isolate, and erase her story in order to protect its political brand. Lucy's testimony was not only courageous, it was explosive. For the first time, she publicly named 3 individuals in Starmer's inner circle, stating that they had full knowledge of the abuse allegations and actively participated in concealing the matter from internal investigators and the press. She claimed to possess documented evidence, including emails and recorded conversations, that had been previously submitted to Labour's legal department but were never followed up. The names she revealed included a senior campaign advisor, a long-time party strategist, and a former Labour MP who, according to Lucy, warned her to drop the issue quietly if she valued her future. As her statement unfolded, gasps echoed across the room. Journalists were visibly stunned. What had once been whispered in political backrooms was now out in the open and impossible to ignore. Almost immediately after her statement, an unredacted dossier of evidence was leaked to several major news outlets. The documents include damning internal memos that reference Connolly's case, alongside directives that suggest coordinated attempts to delay or derail internal probes. Screenshots of WhatsApp group chats among Labour staffers were particularly disturbing. In one message, a party official allegedly joked about burying Lucy's story before the Sunday papers sniff it out. Another chilling message from a top aide read, "We don't need another Talk Me Too mess on our hands. Shut it down." These revelations lit a match under an already blazing firestorm. Public outrage intensified. Protesters gathered outside Parliament, demanding the immediate resignation of Keir Starmer and full criminal investigations into the individuals named by Lucy. Within hours, international headlines erupted. CNN led with UK Labour Party in crisis as abuse cover-up claimed surface. France 24 called it Britain's Me Too reckoning. Even the Washington Post featured the story on its front page under the title, "Silence No More." The ripple effect was immense. British embassies abroad were flooded with inquiries. EU and UN officials released statements expressing concern over the UK's internal accountability mechanisms. This wasn't just a domestic scandal anymore. It had morphed into a global indictment of how Britain's political elite handle the cries of vulnerable individuals. The political fallout became unmanageable. Dozens of Labour MPs issued coordinated statements distancing themselves from the party leadership. Some openly called for Starmer to step down, claiming that his continued presence was toxic to the Labour brand and a betrayal to victims of abuse everywhere. Members of the shadow cabinet began resigning en masse, with at least 6 confirmed departures within 24 hours of Lucy's statement. Constituency offices were overrun with calls and emails from angry constituents demanding answers. Donors began withdrawing their funding, and local party branches suspended campaign activities, citing a crisis of trust and conscience. Keir Starmer, for his part, attempted damage control with a last-minute televised address, but the effort backfired spectacularly. His speech, which was meant to express sympathy and promise reform, came across as robotic and insincere. He refused,